Hello. 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 Oh, can't even see me this week. Got too many toys. This week we're going to see what you get as you go up through the range. I've got 4 open back Beyerdynamic headphones. They're all open back. They're all made by the same manufacturer, but they range in price from sort of like $129 for the DT990, going up to sort of $899 for the T1. So it's just going to be interesting kind of going through them, seeing what you get for your extra money, how they're built, changes they've made, that kind of thing as they've gone along. Now then, obviously the 990, 900 and 1990 are all professional studio monitoring headphones, and the T1 is more, you know, your home audiophile thing, but you know, it's what you get if you go up to that kind of next bracket. And I know a lot of audiophiles use these other ones as well. I was thinking when we do the Pro ones, what we might do is go 990 first, then 1990, then 900, because that was kind of the order that they were released in, and you can then see what lessons they've learned from the 1990 that have gone into the 900, because there is a bit of cross-pollination. You know, they started off with these, they've improved on them, made some other improvements in here. The T1 is kind of on its own. It's a bit more old school kind of in its design. It's a bit more like the 990 but on steroids. So yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Have a listen, pull them apart, see what they look like inside, what differences there are, that kind of thing. Cool. Alright, so let's take a look at the 990 first. And this is the oldest model. It's been around for the longest time. It's old school. It's cool. As you may know, Beyerdynamic have been making these for many, many years, or something very similar. They have changed, certainly over the past year or so. They've slightly altered the design. Not that you'd know it unless you were in the biz. Let's just get these out. So, as you can see, open back. These are professional headphones. So you can see on the top here, you've got poppers to easily replace the headband, that kind of thing. These are designed to use in studios and things where they're going to get ruined and you're going to have to fix them. So you've got big chunky screws, easily replaceable ear pads, everything you can buy from Beyerdynamic. Now then, they say they're open back and they look pretty open from here, but if you look inside, I'd say they're kind of semi-open. So let's just get the ear cup out. Just remove the pads, remove the retaining ring. Underneath we've got a bit of foam to cover the dust, and here we've got the driver. So this is your basic DT990 driver, pretty nice. I think it's a sort of 45mm driver, paper surround. As you can see, the new ones have got printing on them. Inside here you've got a plastic insert, as you can see, with some felt damping to absorb some of the sound that's bouncing back, because the open part is actually the center there. So I'd say, yeah, they're not fully open. You can pull this out and make them fully open, but it retunes them slightly, so you lose a little bit of bass by doing that, but it does make them sound a little bit more open. It's one of those things that you could play around with if you were modding these. But that's your entry level, and these are very good. We sell a lot of these, and people love them. You know, they love them in studios and stuff, but also the audiophile community have kind of started to notice them because they're very good value. For £129, they sound really good, and obviously the durability of the Pro thing where you can repair it is nice. As you can see, there's an attached cable, so it's not detachable on this one. It's a fixed cable. Those are replaceable, but it's fixed. So after they'd released the 990 been out for many years, and then Beyerdynamic released the Beyerdynamic T1, which was their Tesla driver, which very clever magnetic flux, very powerful magnets essentially, which really improved the sound, and the two ran side by side for quite a long time. But then eventually they used some of that Tesla technology that they've developed to make the 1990, and this is more of a kind of premium high-end one. So these have recently gone up in price. Like our cost price went up by £100, which is insane. I don't know whether Beyerdynamic could do us over or not, but yeah, these have gone up in price recently for some reason. So 1990s. So as you can see, they just look a bit nicer. They've got the nice stitching on the headband there rather than the poppers. So it's not as easy to change it. They're not as, you know, these ones are tanks. These ones, if you want to change the headband, it's a bit more involved. Metal over the top there, metal mesh in there, metal hinges. So overall kind of like a nicer, slicker design with more expensive materials on the 1990. They've changed the system for the pads, which is supposed to make changing them a little bit easier. So rather than having a pad and then a separate retaining ring, the whole pad and retaining ring are one bit that you can pull off. Supposed to make changing the pads easier, so you can pull out that inner ring. But you can see the basic design of the ear cup is pretty similar. You know, they haven't strayed too far from it, and most of the parts will be swappable. You could put a DT1990 driver inside some 990s if you were so inclined. Let's pop this out. Now then, in here, so this is their Tesla driver that's in the 1990s versus the 990 driver. So you can see it is quite a different driver. Can we pull this bit off? Let's have a look. So this bit on the back here will have been to do with tuning. But you can basically see the magnet on this one, much bigger. You've got a much more open hole on the back there, whereas the holes underneath this magnet are just around the edges, or just around the edge of the driver there. But yeah, main thing is this dirty great magnet that they've got in there. Increases the magnetic flux, makes them able to reproduce, especially low frequencies. I feel like really accurately. The bass is better on these. But one other thing that they improved from a repairability point of view, so that the headband, not so easy, but it's only a couple of screws that you have to undo and then you can replace it. It's just this one you can whip out in a few seconds. This one takes 10 minutes. But as you can see on this one, the driver is actually socketed. So you can pull the wires out. They've got a little socket in there, so that if you break the driver, or if you blow a driver, because in pro applications you've got idiots using it and they'll crank stuff too loud and you blow a driver maybe, or something clips, something like that. So with the older ones you had to solder the driver, and you obviously need a certain amount of skill to resolder a driver, whereas the 1990, it's got these tiny little pico clasp connectors on there, so you can plug those in and unplug them pretty easily. So it's much easier to change a driver. These little connectors are a little bit on the weak side though. They're obviously very small, so it is possible to break that. The other thing you'll notice is that it's got a detachable cable. 3-pin mini XLR on this one, and then that one's attached. What is amusing is when these first got released, we'd been modifying the 990s and the 770s for quite a long time to have a mini XLR in there, so they'd have a detachable cable. And when we did it, it was a 4-pin, because then you can run balanced. You basically need 4 connections to run balanced headphones. When these ones came out, our Beyerdynamic rep said, "Oh yeah, you'll like this, because they come with the mini XLR already in, so they're all ready for balanced." And then we noticed that they'd used a 3-pin mini XLR, so it doesn't work with balance. I don't think, it's probably just our rep. I don't know whether he'd been told that by Beyerdynamic at head office, but yeah, I'm like, no, that's not how balanced works. But it's good that they've got a detachable cable. I think they copied our idea, let's face it. We were doing that long before they were. But yeah, that's cool. So you got those. Cool. Let's see what your 990s. Your 1990s. Okay, so this is the new kid on the block, the DT900, which has got the new driver, which is called Stella. I haven't played with these as much. I'm just starting to mod them. We're developing mods and stuff for them at the moment. So I don't know the ins and outs of these quite as much, but let's get these out. So these ones are very professional, you know, it's your pro studio stuff. This is designed to kind of your prosumer, someone with a home studio, that kind of thing. They've got a lower impedance driver that's easier to drive, and the idea is that you can plug it into your laptop or whatever and it'll run nicely without having to plug it into a big mixer to power it. There you go, and that's the first interesting thing, that the driver is socketed. So changing the driver on these is super easy, and they've got much chunkier connectors in this one than they had in the 1990, because I don't know this for certain, but I suspect some people managed to break the connectors when unplugging them, whereas this is the chunkiest connector I've ever seen for a driver. So again, what they've learned in this, they've carried through to the DT900. The driver is very nicely designed. They've done some things. So here at the back of the driver, they've got a rounded over bit, which is something that we've done on some of our mods, where we've tried to smooth out the airflow going in and out of the magnet, which makes quite a lot of difference. So it's interesting to see them integrate that into the design of the driver. Should we be brave and see if we can pull this off? So here we go. I've not opened one of these before, so this is quite interesting. There we go. I think we're in. Ooh. Okay. So that's inside the Stella driver there. So you can again see you've got a pretty big magnet. It's not one of the Tesla magnets like they've got in the other ones, but it's pretty big, bigger than the 990. So it does sit right in, so the design again sits right in between. So you've got smallest magnet, medium-sized magnet, big old Tesla magnet in that one. And again, this jobby was stuck on there for tuning. So you've got paper, which will restrict the airflow, and that tuned port, which I showed on there. So that is that. But yeah, this is a new kind of, like, they must have a new design team. These are designed differently. You can see some of the Beyerdynamic DNA in there, the repairability, that kind of thing. But they're just designed very differently from the rest of them. This might be the sign of things to come. This might be the new generation of things. But yeah, these ones are supposed to sound very good. So that is the Stellar driver, and again you can see they've got a little cushiony bit on the front. So most of them have got this felt disc, and Beyerdynamics tend to have a peak about 8-9K, and then on the Tiger 300, they have something like this in it, which seem to drop that peak down. So it'd be quite interesting. Once I've got all these back together, we'll run some tests. So let's put this back together. Oh, putting those pads on is much quicker than the others. Right, so that's the DT900 Pro X. Yeah, I didn't show you on these. But again, only semi-open. As you can see, you've got just several holes there that are open, but you've got no damping material in these ones. On the ones that we sell, we tend to put a little bit of damping in there. It does seem to improve a couple of things. And again, no damping in this one, and again semi-open. So they're not as open as they look. So on the back you can see they've got loads of grills there, but they've actually only got a few little holes inside. Quite interesting. Again, it's all down to tuning. They will have tried it more open, less open, that kind of stuff. So it's just interesting how when you've got an open back headphone, you expect to see it fully exposed, and because of the tuning they didn't go for that, but they made it look like it's fully open by putting these grills on the back. Alright, let's move those over. Let's get the big dogs out. Oh, look at that. Nice case with a metal doodad on there. Ooh. You get fancy when you get up to 900 quid. Right, so that's the T1s, and again you've got a nice logo in there and stuff. That's good. So what you'll notice on these ones is it's detachable again, but it's got two 3.5mm jacks, so you've got symmetrical, like a Y type thing, which means that the length of wire to each ear is going to be the same, because you haven't got one going to one ear and then a longer one going over the ear cup to the other. Having it this way also means that you can go balanced just by changing the cable. So you can buy a balanced Beyerdynamic T1 cable and plug it into your balanced amplifier, whereas the other ones need to be converted before you can run them balanced. Balance isn't, some people don't care about it, but if you've got a balanced amp and you want to use the balanced output, it's a bit annoying that you have to convert these. But I have heard there's this cool company in the UK that you can send them off to, and they'll convert them to balance for you. Custom cans, I believe. Yeah. Anyway, so if you need these balanced, send them to us. We'll sort them out. Anyway, let's have a look at these ones, the expensive ones. These are too expensive for me to ruin, so I'm going to be careful. So these ones, as you can see, they've gone back to it's interesting. So if you look at the 990, same kind of hinge and yoke design. The T1 and the 990 stem back further than these. These are newer designs that they've come up with. So even though this is the 3rd gen, it shares a lot of the DNA with the old school Beyerdynamic stuff. So again, T6 screws, plastic hinges. In some ways, the hinges on the 1990 are nicer. These are all like machined aluminium, beautiful things. Yeah. But this is, as I said, the T1 predates them, but this 3rd gen T1 is newer. Okay, so we've got that off. Let's have a butcher's inside. So let's take the pad off. And underneath you can see on this one, you've got an angled driver. So the sound is coming more at your ear rather than side on. It's coming front on, so it's coming at you more like you'd be listening to speakers or something like that. The wavefront would be coming from there. You've also got a thing over the top which is for tuning, a bit like on the Pro X, which the original T1s I don't think had. They didn't have this extra layer on there, so that must be tuning it in some way. And again, we might have, when we do the tests, we'll have a look and see if removing that makes a lot of difference. So yeah, so there's that separate little foam piece there, which will probably attenuate some of the higher frequencies. I remember on the older T1s, you just had it like this, where you had the acoustic silk over everything. It's nice. Like these are built to a higher standard. And again, inside, oh, snaz. When you look at that driver, that is a sexy bit of kit. So you can see, much bigger metal driver. I don't know if this is as big as the original T1s. It looks a bit smaller. I think it is smaller than the original T1 drivers. But yeah, basically, gigantic magnet, big metal housing, which is going to give it more mass to press against, which should improve the bass frequencies further. There is a plastic jobby in there, which will be due to tuning. Again, that can be removed. On the original T1s, it didn't have those in there, so they will have tweaked the sound slightly by putting that in there. What is interesting in the T1s, which you don't really see in a lot of headphones, you'll notice you've got 3 wires. You've got a positive and negative. Don't get near the magnet. And then a ground here. So supplied with the headphones is a shielded cable which is grounded to the driver. That is one of their selling points, but I think that is also a bad idea, and a lot of people actually disconnect the shield on the original cable because it sounds a little bit better. Here's the reasoning for it. So shielding, you think, that's really good, yeah, shielding, stop the noise, but because these are like they're quite sensitive drivers, but they're not so sensitive that a bit of radio frequency or something like that is going to be picked up by the cable and turned into sound. Like there's just not enough power from the interference being picked up by the cable to make any sound in the driver. But having that shielding increases the capacitance of the cable, so you're going to get more roll-off at the very high frequencies. Now, then it's something that they will have done all their testing with that cable, and they will have tuned it with that cable. So it's tuned right for that cable, but the shielding seems unnecessary and could potentially cause a bit of high-end roll-off. But I'm sure, as I said, when they were doing the testing and tuning, it would have been with that cable, so they would have tuned it appropriately to take into account that possible roll-off you get from the extra capacitance. Inside, again, a semi-open design with the hole in the centre and some more holes around the outside. You've actually got a little bit of foam in there as well. But again, I'm quite surprised that there's no foam inside to stop sound from bouncing off. And can you hear that? Kind of, you're going to have some kind of resonance and stuff coming from the casing. So I would have thought sticking something on there, just a little bit of rubber or something, would have brought down some of those resonances. And but they haven't, and they probably know more than me. Probably tried it, didn't do anything. I don't know. But that might be something that's worth investigating. I might have a play with these and see if there's any tweaks and stuff that we can do, as I've got them here doing nothing. So interesting seeing the better drivers you get as you go up in the range, and obviously the angled driver is more difficult to make. It's just, and when you look at it, they should have a glass back on these, shouldn't they? So you can see that driver and go, oh yeah, baby, that's cool. Yeah, too sexy to be hidden away in there. But so let me put these back together, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a listen to all of these. I've never listened to all of them, but we're going to plug them into the same amp. I'm going to have a quick listen to all of them, and then tell you what the differences are and which ones I like and what I like and don't like about each one. We will also put them on the rig, do some tests, and then I might also try swapping around some of these little foam bits and bobs and see what they do. So it's going to be quite a long video, but yeah. Oh, there's another thing I like, is the cutout in this ring. I don't know if you can see that. That makes it easier to put pads on. I've stolen that idea for one of our things. I'm going to be totally using that in the future. It makes putting the pads on for normies loads easier. Let me just show you how it works. So what you do is you put your pad there against the flat bit, twist, and it automatically puts it on. They should have those on bicycle rims, like for putting on tyres and stuff. Just, whew. I know it wouldn't work with tyres because of the friction, but it's just a clever idea. It works. Well, that was really interesting. It's really nice having a listen. They do all sound different, as you'd expect. And I think you should own at least 2 of these in your collection. What up, people? It's Future Jason here, and that video, it went on for too long. It was like 45 minutes, so I've cut it in 2, divided it in twain, made 2 thingamabobs from 1 thingamabob. We should probably make it more watchable and more relevant. This one, having a look inside, the other one's having a listen. So if you want to see the second video, where I have a listen to all the headphones and compare the frequency plots and discuss the sound, that kind of thing, that'll be out in a couple of days, so get subscribed, hit like, that kind of thing, and yeah, I'll check you out in a couple of days. Alright, bye.